crowd begins to roar. High-flying daredevils in a battle like never before. Oh yeah, from the turnbuckle to the mat, the action never stops. Talking wrestling takes you to the top. Oh yeah, feel the energy, the thunder as the crowd begins to roar. High-flying daredevils in a battle like never before. Oh yeah, from the turnbuckle to the mat, the action never stops. Talking wrestling takes you to the top. Oh yeah, talking wrestling is the war rifle, so plexus to body slams. We got it all inside. Get ready for excitement. That's on the show. Talking wrestling is ready to throw down. Oh yeah.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Wrestling with Pondwater Dave. I'm Pondwater Dave, but I couldn't do it without the First Lady of the Arn Anderson Fan Club, Miss Amy Vaughn. How are you tonight, Amy?
I am wonderful. How about you?
Cannot complain at all. Excited to be with you tonight and talk about this documentary.
You know what, though? I think you can complain a little bit. Didn't you have your truck broken into? You don't want to complain about that?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, well. What happens when that happens? Like, what does anything happen? I mean, they took your stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean,
or...
breaking the side window out. For those that I've worked for Frito-Lay, over the weekend, somebody cut through the fence of our bin, and they knocked the side window out of my truck and got in there. They stole some cookies, crackers, nuts, and seeds.
That's a crack addict that got hungry. Meth head that got hungry.
Well, you know,
that's an odd thing to steal.
Yeah, I mean, they just the small ones, but I got tickled because we got some new Ruffles. They're called Ruffles All Dressed, and they don't sell very well at all, not in my area. And they're Canadian. They're Canadian chip, and anyway, they pulled I think they stole some potato chips off the truck too. There wasn't I don't keep a lot of them on there. But when I say they stole nuts and seeds, they're like caddies of 8 packages of cashews, and they stole some jerky, Jack Link's teriyaki bites. I mean, they got me, but I'm lucky because they left the back doors open. And so I'm lucky the raccoons didn't get in and tear my truck up.
Oh my.
I mean, it's having the window broken was a pain. They didn't get a great deal of product from me, and I mean, it's just aggravating. But they pulled the box of Ruffles All Dressed down, and they didn't steal them.
Like, oh, they probably tried some. You think they tried a bag?
They didn't try them, but I mean, now they did have a box. They got my I keep a box up in the cab that I throw my trash in, and I'll swap it out. But they packed some nuts and seeds in the box. But I keep a bottle of Febreze and a package of baby wipes on the truck, and they threw those in the box too. So they were going to steal my Febreze and my baby wipes.
All righty.
Well, my knees sweat in my knee pads, so I'll spray my knee pads down every day, and then I'll use the baby wipes to wipe my sweaty knees off.
So if I smell cinnamon apple, it's not really cinnamon apple. It might be your Febreze knee pads. Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know what flavor it is. It's like the heavy duty stuff.
Interesting.
There you go. We've just fascinating the crowd right out of the gate. Want to start off the show with some sad news. Friend of ours, one of our wrestling friends, Joey Carr, passed away this past week. Joey'd been sick. He'd been suffering for a long time. This is Joey. Confined to a wheelchair, but he made it to all these wrestling conventions, Starcasts. I mean, he just was always there, taking it all in, meeting his idols. He recently went to a horror convention with his cousin. I mean, even though it's he had challenges, you know, he lived he lived like, I mean, he knew what was going on, and
Mhm.
he didn't let it slow him down, and he lived life to the fullest. He's an inspiration for us all, and we're gonna miss Joey. And
Definitely.
I feel so bad for his mom. Mom took great care of him, and that little dog Sam. And that little service dog doesn't know what's going on, so he just knows that Joey's not there anymore. So we're all going to miss him, and so keep his family in your thoughts and prayers.
Definitely, definitely.
And a lot of death this week.
Yeah, did you well, I should check to make sure, but one of the little American picker guys died
Yeah, I saw
today.
that. Him and Dikembe Mutombo, who was only 57.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
didn't
he was
realize he
older
was
than
that
me.
young. Yeah.
He died of brain cancer, and we lost
Mhm.
Pete Rose.
Yes.
Pete Rose, the, the greatest hitter of all time, uh, barred from the game of baseball for gambling. Never gambled against his own team. But Major League Baseball never felt the need to lift his ban. Of course, if they needed him for something like the All Century team, they'd call him and he could show up for that. Anytime baseball needed Pete Rose was there for him.
Mhm.
But because Pete Rose loved baseball,
Mhm.
but baseball didn't love Pete Rose back unless they needed something. So what
So
I'm
you
saying in a loud and clear voice, and this is going to be clipped out because
oh,
the Baseball Hall of Fame is bogus,
mhm.
bogus AF, because Pete Rose isn't in it. I don't care if he bet on baseball. Everybody else gets forgiven. There's wife beaters. There's wife beaters in the Hall of Fame. There's racists in the Hall of Fame. There's people that played the game drunk in the Hall of Fame. I mean, don't tell me, don't hold your game up like it's got all this prestige when you got uh, nightly your umpires are having a good night if they can call 60% of the calls right. They're fixing to replace them with robots. So get off your damn high horse, baseball. But don't put him in the Hall of Fame now.
You
Don't
don't
put him in the Hall of Fame now because it's too late. You blew it. So don't pretend like you love him now, you bunch of bastards. He, I mean, I've heard stories that man, Pete Rose was something else. He's a character.
yeah. Well, we saw him at the WWE. He's in the WWE
He's
Hall
in
of
the
Fame.
WWE Hall of Fame. So anyway, shout out to Pete. I felt like I needed to talk bad to Major League Baseball.
Well, and like you said, there's like it's been a 24-hour span, and Chris Christopherson died, who was
Yeah,
a writer, songwriter, singer. Now
actor.
we have the actor, the little American picker guy. I just happened to see that. I mean,
Now, when
I
I
don't
was a
know what's
kid,
going on.
my introduction to Chris Christopherson was a 40. My granny Freilich had a 45. For
Hmm.
you kids that don't know what a 45 is, it's the record that's the smaller round record that had the bigger hole in the middle of it. It played at 45 rotations per minute back before we had digital and
Right.
CDs. But she wore this 45 out and played it, and it was a song called "Why Me," gospel song.
Hmm.
Chris Christopherson was amazing on that song. I don't particularly think he was that great of a singer, but he did a great job on "Why Me." It's my favorite Chris Christopherson song. He was a good actor, great actor, hell of a songwriter, and part of the Highwaymen with Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Johnny Cash.
Hmm.
He was part of that group, and yeah. But I think he was 83. He had a good run.
Yeah, he was an older gentleman. Yes. How old was Pete Rose?
83. No, Pete was 83. I think Chris Christopherson was 88.
Okay. Okay. That's what
There's been
I
too
was.
many people dying this week for me to remember all the details.
Well, yeah, really. I felt like Pete Rose was an older gentleman, and um, but like the American Picker and the Natumbo, like you said, I think he was 59, and I think American Picker was 60. But then Pete Rose and Chris Christopherson were in their late 80s, or in their 80s. So you just have this wide variety of ages of people passing. It's just um, I don't know. I don't know if it's because as I'm older, I make more friends, people, and it's like, gosh, it's like every time you turn around, I feel like someone has, passed away. We had Joey pass away last at the end of, or last week, and it's just been kind of crazy the last few weeks.
Yeah,
We've had
Father Time doesn't do any jobs.
no, well, and I'm wearing FTR shirt just because. Well, number one, I love them,
Yeah.
but their towns were hit with the hurricane and are completely underwater. And
Man,
Cash Wheeler,
those people in Tennessee and in the Carolinas and all through up there, they're suffering, man. This is bad.
yes, Cash Wheeler's taken has a GoFundMe, and you could donate to it, and he's taking food and water and different supplies and stuff to his hometown, Dash or Dash, Lord. Um, like you said, I mean, they're really hurting, and the devastation is just absolutely incredible. And
I've got a friend in law
ugh,
enforcement that's been helping out, and I mean,
uh-huh.
he's seen some horrific sights.
I mean, just
There's
mm-mm.
bodies floating, bodies in cars. It's terrible. People without the necessities. I mean, I mean, we're not talking about they're going to have to make repairs. They're going to start over. There's towns that are gone.
Exactly. Well, I speak of this only because I know personally about basically your town getting leveled, because my town of Mayfield was leveled from a tornado in 2021, and they are still rebuilding. They are, you know, um, it takes a long time. And for them, at least when we had our tornado, it went through and then you had to pick up your pieces. They're still sitting in bodies of water, like they can't even get to people. And so I just wonder, like that devastation it's incredible. And um I do want to wish, I want to send good vibes, prayers, karma, whatever you all, whatever you do. I ask that you send those to those people, because they're running out of things. They're trapped. They can't, um, it's really bad. It's
Yeah,
devastating. And I
in
just
Florida
really
too. I
pray
mean,
for them. Oh,
can
yes,
you
yes.
imagine? Can you imagine that you have so much to worry about because you got water up to your waist,
Mm,
and then there's alligators swimming around.
exactly.
So
Or, you're sitting. And the other thing, and this is just the the animals, like I've been
yeah,
seeing, like, animals that are on the rooftops or what. I just, like I said, if I could have a superpower and I could go and fly, I would be picking up all these animals and people on the roof, because I mean, that, like I said, there's so many good law enforcement and, uh, people that are, firefighters, and your hospitals, and everybody is doing everything that they can. And we just want to push out the good vibes. There are lots of good, GoFundMe's. Like I said, Cash Wheeler has one out that, you can donate to, and he's getting out supplies. If you feel it in your heart to do something like that, I would definitely encourage that. Those people need it. And I know, like I said, I know about being in a town that's utterly devastated. So,
yeah, it's bad. I mean,
yeah.
uh, we're gonna we're gonna move on to our topic tonight. Right up front, I want to tell you. I mean, we've
I
Debbie
just
Downer
laugh
this
because
whole
it's
show.
just, I know, it's
We've
just like,
covered
can we?
death and destruction, and now we're going to talk about narcissistic narcissistic character that's we're going to say more bad about than good for sure.
I
I
know.
do want to let you know right up front that tonight's show contains mature themes, discussions about sexually based crimes, and viewer discretion is advised. This is not a show for the kids. You should never let your kids listen to us anyway, under any circumstances.
I think they should not let them listen to you. I don't say dirty words like you
Oh,
do.
bullshit. I just want to know that none of my merch says asshole on it. I was not quoted saying asshole. And you didn't just say asshole. You attacked me personally.
No,
Yeah, you
I
called
was
me an
just saying,
asshole.
I just said pucker up. So,
Asshole is what you said. Don't
I
make me pull the video. But
okay.
speaking of kids, one of mine's going to join us tonight.
Yay!
Welcome to the show, my daughter Brittany. Hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Yeah, he tells you don't let your kids watch and then brings on his kid.
Yeah. Well, because there's some of this stuff that I did let my kids watch, and she even texted me. She said, I can't, she knew that she remembered that I didn't feel comfortable with letting her watch some of the stuff in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And when I watched it back, I felt uncomfortable. And I always felt uncomfortable when it was going on that there was kids in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're going to talk about tonight is the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix. I binge watched 6 episodes of it. I did 5 yesterday, and then I finished it up today. How far have you gotten in it, Brittany?
It's episode 4. We've watched episode 4, so we're going to do 5 and 6 tonight.
Okay. Oh yeah. Have you ever seen Goodfellas?
Which one is that?
Goodfellas is the gangster movie with Ray Liotta. That one. It was about
No, I've seen the other one.
Okay. Well, what about you, Amy?
Yes, I have seen Goodfellas.
Goodfellas was a movie that was about gangsters, and it was kind of fun in the beginning. It was where Joe Pesci says, why are you laughing? Do you think I'm a clown? Why am I funny?
Oh, maybe I have seen that.
But what I'm saying is the gangster stuff, and they're romanticizing the gangsters part of the movie. And it was kind of fun, but then the drugs got involved, and then the movie just wasn't so much fun anymore. And, because it took a turn.
And the killing.
Yeah. This documentary reminded me of Goodfellas because there's parts of it with the wrestling, the parts that I enjoyed, then the parts that I didn't enjoy that I thought were silly, and then the parts that I loved and when it was really can't miss. But then you sprinkle in the douchebaggery of Vincent Kennedy McMahon and all the scandals and the conflicts and it just, man, it was. I had to quit watching because I took breaks because some of it just got so heavy that I couldn't just go right into the next episode. So we started out with episode 1, and one of the quotes about wrestling that Vince said was, it gives the fans the opportunity to feel. And that one quote kind of hit me about wrestling. When wrestling's done right, you do feel the emotion. And we've talked about it all throughout the run of our show when we talk about my fandom as a kid, because I felt it. So the best wrestling is when you have the opportunity to feel. But I thought it was strange in 1985 for Vince to talk. He was doing an interview and actually did call it sports entertainment, even back then, before that phrase was coined.
Right.
And they pointed out that wrestling formula is simple. It's a simple formula that's hard to do.
And I agree with that. Don't you? I agree with that. Like,
yeah, it's easy.
I think it's a simple formula. But it is hard to do. And sometimes people try to do too much or not enough. And
less is more.
Definitely.
And
in some cases, definitely.
And the just the wrestling business in general. Vince, I'm going to tell y'all right up front as we go through this that Vince McMahon has always been and always will be the villain in my wrestling story. Because I like pro wrestling. Pro wrestling's not a dirty word to me. I liked the territory systems. I understand that it was going to go away. But Vince, in my mind, when Vince stole Ted DiBiase and took the black glove off of him and put the $1 Million Man gimmick on him, which was a brilliant gimmick. It was a brilliant gimmick. I'm not taking anything away from the brilliant. Ted DiBiase made more as $1 Million Man than he did as wearing a black glove Ted DiBiase.
Mm-hmm.
But then you took the Junkyard Dog, and then you took Greg the Hammer and made him with rhythm and blues, and then you took Dusty Rhodes and you put him in polka dots, and he raided the territories, killed off what I loved. That's why Vince has always been and always will be the villain of my wrestling story. But now I got a lot of more reasons. I don't think this documentary broke a lot of ground.
Well, you know what? This is what's interesting. And so, Brittany, this is where you come in. I don't feel like, for me, for someone who watches a lot of wrestling and keeps up with different things or whatever, I don't feel like there was anything new in this documentary. Like, I feel like it was maybe a lot of stuff that I already knew and would in a 6 series document. So for you, Brittany, because you're not probably someone that has a lot of knowledge, at least with this first episode, or you could talk about any that you've seen. What was your initial feelings about Vince McMahon before? Like, I didn't even, you could say I didn't know anything. And then from what you have watched, what are some questions that you have thought about? Like, how could my dad even watch his show? No, something like that.
No, like the way I was telling my dad, I was like, I don't feel like I formed any new opinions about certain people. Cause like, I knew he was human garbage going into it. Like I knew enough.
Gotcha.
It's just kind of now I could tell you why. Like it's interesting. Like the first couple episodes, I feel like I was watching it more in the context of my dad's perspective, which is like, it's an interesting, like I'm looking at it like, these are the people that my dad always talks about. These are the people that my dad grew up watching. And like, this is the stuff that like he would, go on and on about. And I don't like younger. I didn't know what any of, like, even last night we were talking on the phone and he would start saying some names. And I'm like, wait, which one is that? Like, what were they wearing?
Yes.
So like the first couple episodes where it's more like the background, it was more of like putting context behind stories or conversations I've already had with my dad. And then it got to like the Attitude Era. And like, that's when like I have memories of actually watching episodes. And I texted him and I was like, I got this vivid memory of him all of a sudden getting really uncomfortable that we were in the room. And like, I remember him stopping and being like, oh, do I tell them to leave?
Right.
So like I had those kinds of memories. And like something you just said was like, oh, I wonder if that's why I never really got into it, because it did, like when I was old enough to pay attention to it, it was during that time where everything was like really over the top, and it was a little like not as like the storylines were so dramatic. And
well, you were only 5 when the Monday Night War started. So you were under 10 11 years old when they ended.
I mean,
you weren't the demographic for the Attitude Era.
Well, yeah, but that was the first, like, those were the first, like, things that, like, I remember you taking us to a match, and, like, when we were there, like, I remember, like, having a good time, but, like, it wasn't, like I wasn't gonna, like, I couldn't get into the storylines and stuff like that. But, like, the first couple episodes of the documentary, like, it's been really cool to, like, hear the stories from the people that like I know their names because I've heard you talk about them.
Yeah. I mean, during the Attitude Era, I mean, it was just, we were all doing crotch chops. I was a lot younger during, I'm 58 now, but I was in my 30s during the Attitude Era. And
I do remember that. like they showed clips of that. I was like, oh, I remember that being a thing.
Yeah. But I'm thinking, and I kind of like, my brain now doesn't register like it did then. I thought so much of it was cool.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it just, like I said, it wasn't cool for the kids. Like,
No.
I wanted to see, I mean, when like Sable, when
Mm,
Sable was taking that shirt off and she had those handprint pasties on.
right.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I wasn't all for it, but I wouldn't be for it with a child sitting next to me. I mean, I never
Right.
took my kids to the wrestling matches. I wouldn't want to see Vince McMahon dropping his pants to get his ass kissed in front of my child.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's,
Did you just say you wouldn't have, or that
I
you
would not
did?
have. I
Okay.
did not want
But
to see that.
You did.
Oh yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I wasn't turning it off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there was turmoil, but it wasn't. There was no TiVo at that point. So
Right.
You all had to go to your room, play with your Barbies right now, face the wall.
yeah.
Is that
I
what
mean,
you
and
guys
there wasn't any
do?
pausing either because I was watching on a C-band satellite. I'd watch Nitro. I would watch Nitro at live, and then at
Mm-hmm.
11, I would move it to USA West and watch Raw.
Right.
It's just because I watched Nitro because you never knew what was going to happen. But then there came a point when I was watching Raw and then I was watching the replay of Nitro. So, because once with Stone Cold, and it's funny, I was watching last night and I never owned an Austin 316 shirt.
Mm.
I never felt comfortable with Austin 316. I thought when he said Austin 316 said, I just kicked your ass, I was fine with it and thought it was brilliant. But you wouldn't have caught me wearing an Austin 316 shirt.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember you not being into that.
Yeah.
Just because of the biblical?
Yeah.
reference?
100%.
Really?
Why?
Okay.
I never
Well-
enjoyed attacking Jake. I didn't like Jake doing the religious gimmick, and I didn't like him being attacked for doing the religious gimmick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, I didn't like Shawn Michaels having to wrestle Vince and was it
God.
Vince and Shane?
Oh,
Who was Vince's tag team partner?
I don't know what you're talking
But
about.
anyway, they had a tag team match. Vince and somebody against Shawn Michaels and God.
Oh, yes. I remember
That
God.
whole thing.
Yeah.
That whole thing made me uncomfortable.
Sure. And it was stupid. I mean,
Yeah.
I
was like that. Yeah. I don't think I would have bought into that.
yeah, that's really dumb.
Yeah.
Talk
So-
about this first episode. And so I feel like, okay, so
Well, it kicked off. It kicked off showing you. I forgot that Vince was on David Letterman's 3rd anniversary show.
mm,
But Vince doing that with Cyndi Lauper and the MTV thing, when that took off, to me, that was fun.
of course, yeah.
I enjoyed seeing, because, Cyndi Lauper was popular. Captain Lou was in the video. Girls Want to Have Fun. That whole interaction with getting Wendy Richter to go against Moolah, they were doing all that on MTV. That was fun. Building up to the original WrestleMania, I remember Hulk Hogan and Mr. T being on Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
But that was fun. WrestleMania was fun. I went to the cable company. I had to put a deposit down, $35, $40. I can't remember. I think it was 35 to get a box to take home to put on my television so we could watch WrestleMania.
Right.
In 1985, $35 was a lot of money.
Heck yeah. That's
Not
like
to
a week
mention
of
what we
groceries or
paid to watch
something.
it. That was just the deposit for this box.
Really?
I was into WrestleMania. I was into Muhammad Ali being the referee. I was into Liberace being the timekeeper. I was into Billy Martin being there.
Mm-hmm.
All the pomp with the celebrities and everything. It was fun. I didn't start getting down on WWE till they started doing the music videos where all of them were together.
Mm-hmm.
Night of 1,000 Dances. Well, you guys are supposed to be wanting to kill each other.
Right.
You know, they weren't. You're not supposed to see them all acting. Not only are y'all not killing each other, you're singing together.
Yes, that's very
So
true.
that's when I started getting turned off to WWF. And excuse me. But I mean, I used to get the garden shows once a month. We saw Hogan beat the Sheik.
Mm-hmm.
I was into Hulkamania.
Mm-hmm.
When John Stossel got John Stossel from 2020, he got slapped by David Schultz. He
Mhm.
deserved it. He 100% deserved it.
You can't hit people. You just that's not appropriate response. It really isn't.
Well, I mean, that's
I'm
how the
just saying
business
he-
that's
Yeah,
how the
well,
business was protected, and then until it wasn't.
right.
But I mean, he said, "Is it
Right.
your fake?" I think it's fake. Did that feel fake?
Right.
Belzer, Richard Belzer did the same thing to Hogan. Hogan put him in a front wrist lock, choked him out, dropped him on his head.
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever really seen that clip.
Yeah.
Was that not that was startling? Like the blood is on the floor. Like I was just like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
watched him hit. I was a fan. Okay. So I might be like my demographic being 10 years younger than you is I was 10 years old. I was staying up for Saturday night's main event. I didn't know Hulk Hogan came from AWA. I probably didn't even know there was an AWA, at that point. Like so I watched a lot and then I've kind of had to go back as time has gone on. And that's where you realize after the internet or even the WWE network, having those opportunities to watch AWA or, Kerry Von Erich or, like people in Portland and different, where everybody was coming from. There wasn't a whole lot of homegrown, in WWF at that time, like they were all coming from different places. And so I find that kind of fascinating. But
Well, what about you, Brittany?
What?
How did you feel when you saw the clips of David Schultz slapping John Stossel and Richard Belzer getting choked out?
So we actually had to pause after the Richard Belzer thing because I was like, I need to know how this lawsuit turns out, like immediately, because it was wild. I was like, why the fuck is he suing that? Like you literally, like you're gonna be mad that he put you in the headlock you just asked him to put you in.
right.
I had to go down the rabbit hole because I just couldn't believe he sued. Like it was so wild to me, and he looked like so smug. I was kind of glad he, like, honestly, like, yeah, you got what you deserved on that one. And kind of the same thing on the reporter. I was like, yeah, like you're going to come in here and talk shit and then get mad when they call you on it. Like, yes, like it's not an appropriate response, but I mean, today, yeah, no, like that's gonna be a problem, but
like you said, coming from that time period, they were protecting the business,
yeah.
Amy,
They
this was 1985.
mhm.
I think Stossel might have got slapped in 84. But we'll say, I tell you that to tell you that in 1983, when I went to this, when I went to see the State Fair Coliseum, Terry Gordy jumped down off the ring apron and he sent a guy back 3 rows.
I remember you telling me that.
I mean, just a year prior.
Or did he just slap him?
Huh?
Did he hit him or did he slap him?
He shoved him.
Okay, so
well, the guy came under the barricade. The barricade was just a piece of string. But what I'm saying is that's how it was handled.
Right. Well, that's
somebody got in the
different.
ring. It's not you. They got their ass kicked.
Right. But I think that's different than what we were seeing.
Oh yeah, I meant the reporter.
So I'm saying that you said that you can't do that. Just in 83, you were still doing that. In 84, you can't do that on 2020, obviously. And I'm saying I get it. Drew Review said, "Is the Gordy shove the televised one?" Yes, sir, it is.
Well,
and
even
What
in
I'm saying-
84, 85, whenever that is.
But these
again,
guys were taught to protect the business. And Tony Atlas said that Vince said it. Didn't directly tell somebody to go do something. But
right. I hope someone takes care of that guy.
Mhm.
I hope someone takes care of that guy.
Well, and
I want
will
to say in a loud, clear voice that Tony Atlas is probably the only person on this documentary that told the truth about everything.
He
Yes.
might be my favorite. Like,
especially the shirt and the tie. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Sleeveless
He is-
shirt with the tie.
I think he's so cute. He's so adorable. I'm into it. I like him. Don't know anything about him. Couldn't remember his name last night. Looked it up today to
Well,
make sure I knew who it was. But
You can, hey, Brittany, you can make some money. I can tell you that right now with Tony Atlas. 'Cause he likes feet.
He's and he's
Very-
doubled down on it. I mean, like he lets women walk on him, and
I mean,
Brittany's feet ain't going nowhere near Tony Atlas, Efren.
But I'm going to tell you this. I get it, but and this was you can't hit people because they disagree with you. I understand that. I understand this was the time, but there was a lot of stuff that was going on that in that time period, probably just like Tony said, I'm trying to think of how the best way to say it.
Well, these guys were protecting the business.
Right. But
he wasn't disagreeing. He was talking shit.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And Stossel wasn't there to put them over. Stossel was there to expose them.
I totally agree.
And Stossel on Dark Side of the Ring a couple years ago, they did a Dark Side of the Ring about it. And he pretty much said that there wasn't nothing wrong with him, that he made it all up to win the lawsuit.
Well, yes, I do understand that. I think the 80s and going into the night, like there was a lot of chauvinistic things, like ribs and stuff that they pull on each other. Like I'm just not a fan of any of that. And so it's like, you can't hit people. I'm sorry. And what happened to, Dr. The one that
Dr.
hit
Death?
No, not Dr. Death. Was it? He didn't even go by Dr. Death, did he?
David Schultz?
David Schultz.
Yeah, Dr. Death. Dr. D, David Schultz.
Okay. He didn't have much of a career.
No, Vince fired his ass.
So, I'm just saying it really was, it was a bad time to think that was, like I said, I don't know. I'm just kind of going on and on now, but what I want to talk about.
Vince threw him under the bus.
Well,
when he should have took care of him.
Right. Well, and just like you said, this is exactly how Vince operated. I didn't tell him to do anything.
Well,
but
it shows you the hierarchy. It shows you the hierarchy because Beltzer's a bigger fish than Stossel. And when Hogan choked him out and dropped him on his head on television, Hogan got a talking to. And Vince said that bad publicity, everybody used to say that any bad publicity is still good publicity, but it's not. And
Right.
but Hogan didn't get fired. Hogan didn't get fired for that.
Well,
Hogan didn't get fired.
Someone. Hogan didn't attack someone. He did what that person asked them to do, and then that person just couldn't handle it.
Exactly.
Yeah, but everybody knows that Hogan did that on purpose. Hogan put him to sleep, and when he felt him go limp, he let go. Because if it had kept him on him a little longer, he would have made him crap his pants.
Well, but who would have thought, honestly, like he did cinch up, but like it was like 2 seconds, like, and he fell out. Like, I don't
think he knew he was passed out.
He felt him go limp. Brittany,
he didn't. I didn't look.
The cop that owned the comic book store put me in that, and he laid me down quick. And I don't know how I got from standing up and laying down, but when he got up under there and he put that snot lock on me, he showed me how the legit one was. We were talking about wrestling.
Well, and so that goes back to what the hell's Hogan doing? Like, if you know what that move's going to do, yeah, he was a mouthy, oh, put me in that move. Like, how did he think that was going to go if he just drops them on a concrete pad?
Well, he's also not used to dropping people on like a hard floor. He's probably used to dropping them on like they're gonna hit the mat and like it's fine. Like I don't think he was intentionally trying to crack the guy's head open.
No,
I don't think so either. I just think
he was being a dick, but
yeah.
Belzer had it coming, and I disliked Belzer. I disliked Belzer till the day he died. I never enjoyed him on Law and Order because of that. Huh?
Is he dead?
Yeah, he died a few years ago. And hopefully Stossel's not far behind him.
Anyway, that's terrible. This is
that's
why
mild.
Kids can't watch our show, Brittany.
That's mild.
I know. Oh, I know. But okay, this is my problem.
It's 2 against 1, Amy. She rides like I do on these subjects.
No, that's fine. The problem I have with episode 1 is I feel like, I would love to know what's on the cutting room floor. Okay.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon, his childhood is what has created this person. Okay. He didn't know his dad until he was 12. Like, he didn't have the last name. He was beat by his stepdad. He said there was maybe some incest with his mother. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, this is the story that I want to hear. It's because
yes,
there is a huge missing psychological issue.
Vince used the word incest in the interview.
Exactly.
They didn't go into detail about it, and I think it was a story that he wanted to tell. And they have told it in his Playboy interview.
That's what I was going to say. But yes, so they alluded to this Playboy interview that talked a little bit about that. But like, that is, I mean, for everything that we know now, I'm like, we needed that. I don't know if you've ever watched a crime show documentary, Women That Kill or whatever, and they have a criminal psychologist that's telling you these different things. That's what we needed. Like, we needed a person like that, because his childhood and everything he went through is the reason why he is the way he is. And I would love to know more. Like, they just skimmed over that. Like, he beat you, like, how? Like, how did you not know who your dad was? Like, how does that work? Like, like, I'd love to know those kind of things.
I wonder how different like how much of that they would have shown and how they would have edited it differently had things not happened. Like, had the documentary stayed more,
I think it was in the script.
Positive.
I think it was in the script of the Vince McMahon movie that he bought. He bought that movie and shelved it.
Mm-hmm.
I even put in my notes that he did not have a healthy support system growing up.
He did. He had his 3 different computers that have, I mean, I'm like, does he have split? Like, and I don't mean that being funny. Like, I seriously, like, he has a mindset that he's never going to lose. Like, no one's ever going to hit him again. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's always going to be in control. He's whatever. If people made fun of him, like, I don't know, but just, there's so much there that we don't know that I think is fascinating. And that's just me, though.
Drew Review says, I blame Linda Drew. Partly. A good wife would have beat his ass several times for what he'd done over the years. That's an interesting dynamic, Drew, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the episode.
Drew, I'm going to beat your ass. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that dynamic of that relationship.
Did they say they got married at 18?
She was 17. He met her. Linda? He started dating her. He was 17. She was 13.
Right. But they got young. I mean, like, Linda's a lawyer, right? So, like, how did that? She was 17 years
old when they got married.
Okay. That's what I didn't realize that they were that young. But, I mean, Linda went to school to be a lawyer. I don't know where. I just feel like you said, the relation. I mean, we see Linda in all of this, and you're just wondering, like you said, what kind of support system did he have? How is he treating his family? You know, like it'd be interesting to know. I have so many thoughts on that too. So I wish they would have been able to. Again, I don't know if he didn't want to talk about it or what, but I think knowing more about his back history, and that may be if they wanted him to potentially have some kind of sympathy. Maybe they didn't. So they're not going to tell us,
Yeah.
what got him to this, narcissistic, you know what I mean?
When the story changed and they needed to make him that, like, you can't give too much sympathy up front, because then you're not going to turn on, which
people don't inside of it. People do not, they're not born bad. I do not believe that. And I work with children, circumstances, the way they interpret information that's given them and situations and that support. So, I'd be really interested in, like you said, that dynamics. Is Linda
the first 12 years were bad. And then he meets his dad, and like everything he's saying about his relationship with his dad, I was like, this is not, like, that's not healthy either. Like,
it sounded one-sided. It was like him chasing his dad's affection.
Like #daddy issues, because
it's like he fantasized for 12 years about his dad and how he was going to be so great and take him away from this. Like, what did he say? Like, if he took a beating and he survived, then he won. Like, my God, what a sad mentality you would have to have. Maybe
he got out of the trailer,
and his dad's not loving either. Like,
but he got out of the trailer park, and he talked about that he was attracted to Linda for the type of family that she came from. I guess she was kind of classy, and that appealed to him. He liked that dynamic. Right. I noticed he said that. We kicked off episode 2. Let's lighten this up and make fun of him a little bit. Let's make fun of him. I mean, he's a walking testimonial to the cosmetic surgery industry needs to be regulated a little.
He looks ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there he is. And if they make a movie about him, he's going to be, I got to take that off there. I think who's going to play him in the movie.
It's so bad.
And now, like I said, I have sympathy for him. I do, because he is what he is because of the childhood that he had and the support that he had and the.
You have sympathy for him now?
I do. I'm not a lot. I mean, because again, I don't believe people are born bad. I think.
Yeah, but a lot of people have bad childhoods and don't grow up to be narcissistic assholes.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. But there are a lot that do, and that they take situations and I don't think he thinks that he's done, and like you said, as a narcissist, I think in his mind, he cheats, but he wins. Like, what's the problem? He
takes no personal responsibility for anything he does.
No, it's business. It's not personal. It's business. Exactly. Unless he's the one that's upset.
Exactly. And he's learned that from his dad, or he's learned, you know what I'm saying? I do. Well,
look at the examples. Look at the examples of how he acts when he's confronted.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree.
They ambushed me. I bet. Did you see how childish he acted towards Bob Costas? Bob Costas wasn't wrong. And I don't know who the guy was later that he did the interview with. That
he pushed his papers
and he slapped the papers. And I mean, it was like he didn't know how to react to being confronted. Who had the balls to confront him, and then confront him twice? Right. You know what I'm saying?
I think, again, I'm not saying, and I think most people who do know me, they know that I do tend to be probably more empathetic than probably I should. But again, I agree. Not everybody that has a crappy childhood grows up like, they adapt to their situations, and they can go either, in this direction or that direction. I think he learned when you're confronted, he probably learned at a young age, then you just get louder. And that, you know what I'm saying? Again, I just think that if he had been, if his circumstances were different, like he probably could have been, personality wise, he could have been different. But I feel like he's probably learned, don't let anybody see your weaknesses. Don't, if you're being confronted about something, if you just get louder, I'm sure that's what his stepdad did or his mom. Again, we don't really know a whole lot. Maybe people at school, people, who beat him up or whatever happened. I feel sad because he obviously did not have a very good childhood, and he developed some unfortunate coping skills that did not do him well in life.
Yes, Darren Staley says, yes, correct. He was damaged, and then he became successful. Competency, deviancy came into play, and he put the competency, deviancy theory in the chat earlier. The more competence an individual has, the more deviance will be tolerated in that person by others.
Definitely.
Well, when he starts being shady for, that context, it worked for him. So like the first thing he did was start going in on other people's territories, which was like the first time everyone was like, hey, this is a shitty thing to do, but it worked for him. It went well for him. So like, that just reinforces like, well, it doesn't matter if it's shitty to someone else, it's business. Like,
right.
And he gets away with it.
Well, let's also keep in mind that they don't tell Vince, and I'll even say that when Vince went into a territory, he gave that person the opportunity to work with him, and they normally gave him the finger. I mean, we've heard the stories about Ole. Hey, fuck you and fuck your wife too. I mean, because he tried to introduce Linda to Ole. Ole, this is my wife, Linda. Fuck you and fuck her too. I mean, Ole didn't. I mean, that's how Vince tried to work. He gave them the opportunity to jump on with him, and they chose to fight back. So, I mean, what he did conquer the territories, but the opportunity to work with him was there. So, I mean, that doesn't get talked about a lot.
It's interesting. I don't remember him saying that in the documentary. Does he?
If he did, it could be part that was cut.
Yeah, because like it wasn't framed that way.
Well, and like you said, that might be, again.
Was that their editing or his editing?
Yeah, who knows what was said and how much time they talked about certain things. And I mean, we'll never know. Well, 100 hours of interviews, right? Isn't that what it says on the start of it?
Yeah, it's 100 hours. And I mean, they actually made disclaimers through every episode that most of the people interviewed for this episode was before
definitely
the charges.
Yeah. They timestamped his was filmed in like 2021 or something.
Yeah.
And
also, while we're making fun of him, his sport coat and tie look ridiculous together. Because like I notice those things now that I work in suits, and I was like, that is a terrible outfit.
He liked that outfit. Did you notice? You see it in like when he's on in Gorilla in different places. Like he seemed to have liked that outfit, because I noticed that tie in a few different pictures or things that they were showing us in different venues or whatever. I thought that was interesting.
I also noticed in Gorilla there was a bottle of French's mustard and Heinz ketchup.
I saw that.
I'm wondering is Vince using? Vince doesn't strike me as the condiment guy.
The ketchup mustard though, Bruce has talked about Jim Cornette talks about turkey sandwiches with a little bit of mustard.
Yeah, because mustard doesn't have any calories. If you're bodybuilding, I used to put mustard on chicken breasts when I was working out.
So that's the ketchup is what threw me off.
The ketchup really threw me off.
Yeah, be the ketchup. But he's not. So yes, I wish there was more in the episode about his childhood. I think that could have been condiment show weakness.
But if your mom, if your mom is sleeping with you, making you do stuff, that's pretty traumatic.
But he had a good relationship with his mother. He loved his, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm not understanding what is going on. Like, if you feel like there was incest, like if you feel enough to say there was some incest that was invited by your mother,
Yeah.
why is she still in your life? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that at all. And I would love to know
And kept
what in the
you from
world.
your father for 12 years.
Right. And
So
then,
did Norman Bates.
I was thinking that.
Andrew Hermes for the win.
but again, it's like, that is just like, what are we, again, there's so much there where we ever know, I don't know, but I think that's very interesting. I don't know. I think that there's a good, there's someone in Langley that could be studying him
He's a good case study.
I do. I think he's a great case study. I think it'd be very interesting.
Episode 2 started out with the greatest Vince McMahon segment in the history of Vince McMahon segments. His greatest work. Stand Back.
Yes.
They were doing that. I get, was that the first? That was, I think that was the Slammy Awards. But you had Hulk Hogan back there on the bass. Who Hulk Hogan legitimately plays bass. He was in a rock band. But you got Hulk Hogan back there playing the bass. You got Vince dancing with these girls doing the Stand Back, and it was so craptastic.
Junkyard Dog had a trombone, and Jason Mack and Bruce. It was really like, what in the heck?
I mean, it was so bad that it was good. But then that led to the silly stuff with Saturday Night's Main Event. I remember Saturday Night Main Event coming on one night. I flicked over to see what was on Saturday Night Live, and I had no idea Saturday Night Main Event was going to be on. It wasn't heavily advertised in our area. They used that, and they built to Hogan versus Andre, and I loved how they told the story about Hogan versus building up to Andre, and Vince going to him on the set of The Princess Bride with the idea.
You liked that? But just the way they told the story, or the fact that he did it?
The way that he used Hogan Andre, because WrestleMania 1 was successful. WrestleMania 2 was crap. For the Pontiac Silverdome, they needed something big. I remember the buildup for Hogan Andre. I was excited to see it.
It made me so sad. Like, to me, it was so selfish, which, yes, but like, I think the Andre the Giant documentary I'm never going to be like, he makes me so sad. Mm-hmm. And like, he's in so much pain, like, even Hogan is like, his health is failing him and this and that, but I have a stadium to fill and I need to make some money. So I need you to come out of retirement so that I can sell out this. Like,
well, he wasn't retired. He wasn't retired. He needed surgery.
That's not better.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it for the pure genius professional wrestling side of it. The story that needed to be told. I get the human aspect now, Brittany. And that's what I'm glad you're here for, because you're looking at it completely different than
I don't know that I would feel that way if I hadn't already learned, like, I don't even remember what documentary that was, but whatever I watched on Andre the Giant, it just makes me sad when I see him. Like, when we watched The Princess Bride a couple months ago, it just made me sad. Like, I just want to hug him.
What an incredible movie that is. I love that movie so much.
It is a fun movie.
But it was the way that they built up the Hogan Andre.
Okay, so let me, because I also binged. You don't want people to think he elderly.
Zumac and Merch.
Okay, I binged.
I don't know. I made a note that I can't. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Merch. What was the first word?
Zoo.
When did they talk about? Because, like I said, I watched them. They're all kind of running together. when did they talk about the female referee and the ring boy scandal? Was that in 2 or 3 or
2 or 3?
No, we're getting down to it towards the end of 2.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I just couldn't remember. Like I said, I feel like they're all kind of blended.
I want to point out that Hulk Hogan. I mean, he gave me 100% impression that he would have ate a fart out of Vince's ass.
Oh my God.
But
I
for
was
Hulk
so
Hogan,
annoyed.
this may be some of the most believable interviews that I've ever gotten from Hulk Hogan. I think Hulk Hogan did not come off, other than his loyalty to Vince.
He was blowing Vince so hard.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at one point he said something like, my biggest mistake in life was not listening to. I was like, shut the fuck up. Like,
we could actually give you a better list, Hogan.
Oh
if you
my
want to
God.
know.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean,
you've made some better mistakes. Let's,
but Hogan going on Arsenio Holland line about steroids.
Yes.
that was what it was.
That he should have took the advice, just come clean.
Exactly.
But I'm saying that for Hulk Hogan, that needs to be fact checked. You know, that a lot of time that he facts don't get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
I thought Hulk Hogan presented himself well throughout this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Better than normal, but he is extremely loyal to Vince. I do respect that he got his deal, his immunity in the steroid trial, and then didn't give them what they wanted. And I mean, I think he told the truth, because I don't think Vince was the distributor of the steroids.
Right.
I think it was a witch hunt. I think it was a witch hunt. And I also want to go, and I want to say in a loud, clear voice, I got no problem, none whatsoever, of steroid use in professional wrestling. It's a cosmetic industry. It doesn't give anybody an advantage if it's prescribed by a doctor and monitored, because steroids can be bad. I can remember seeing superstar Billy Graham when he had his hip replacement. The WWE filmed his hip replacement and did a segment about it, and it was anti-steroids. He blamed the steroids for eating up his hip. They took his hip out by scooping marrow, because it dissolved his hips.
That's not good.
This has been years since I saw that, and I remember how graphic it was. But it was like Billy Graham said, this is what steroids did to me. But what I say is that steroids in professional wrestling, I got no issue with it, because, hey guys, it's a work. So if it makes them look like that and everything, then, you know, God bless them, let them do it. I mean, it didn't need to be. Maybe that doctor was out of control selling them. I get that it needed to be regulated. I'm not saying the doctor wasn't guilty and greedy and a gimmick in itself. I mean,
we assume, we don't really know anything.
I thought he looked like a gimmick doctor with his lab coat and his bow tie. I mean, I looked like more of a real doctor as Dr. Phil D. Payne than this. I didn't know he was a legit doctor. I thought he was like on camera gimmick.
Yeah.
Right.
At first.
Right. From the state athletic. Right. Oh darn, what were we going to talk about? I do think Andrew Hermes, he has a fabulous point. And I think that's very true.
I 100% believe that Hulk worked the prosecution. There's no reason that they would have taken that far if the feds didn't think they had an ace in the hole. Oh yeah, exactly. He did work them. He said as much.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got my immunity, and then I told the truth.
Right. And I totally believe, just like, you know, he probably never told them, but again, it is a cosmetic industry, and you're seeing the guys who are built bigger and look better. They are the ones that are getting the title shots and different things like that. You don't have to say, Vince doesn't have to
facilitate the environment for it, but he wasn't guilty of what they were trying to convict him of.
Exactly.
And
same with Dr. with Steve, or what's his name again? Why can't I remember that?
Zahorian.
No. The Schultz, the one who
Dr.
hit
Death, David
Stossel.
Schultz.
David Schultz. The same thing. Vince didn't have to tell them, somebody take care of this dude. They just knew that that's what,
You're taught, they were taught to protect the business.
Yes. But they're also taught that your spot, I mean, you could lose your spot. Like you wrestle hurt, because if you don't, then you lose your spot. If you go home,
Right.
there's someone else. I mean, it's a vicious industry in that sense back then. I mean, people were getting addicted to painkillers and different things like that, because if you went home, there's no money. Someone else is taking your spot. So they were self-medicating. And then you got this doctor that's willing to give you whatever you need. I mean, so it's just, the whole industry was just the way it was set up.
Yeah.
Was, self-destructing, 300, days a year, shows every day, 2 on Sunday. It's not, it's predetermined, but they're getting slammed on their backs, or they're doing different things. They're getting injured, and there was no time and no way that they could properly take care of themselves. They have families to feed. So
how about Phil Muchnick? Phil Muchnick is introduced.
He's an interesting character.
Fuck that guy.
Why do you say that? Just because
He had a
didn't
hard
like
on for the wrestling business. He did
So?
nothing positive for the wrestling business. He
Is
made
he
he made a
was he
nice
lying?
career. He made a nice career out of himself
so?
attacking the wrestling business.
Was he attacking? Was he lying?
He was not lying. He was just saying.
You mad because he told the truth?
He is mad because he told the truth. Look at him. He's mad.
He didn't lie about everything, but
He told the truth about the stuff you didn't want him to tell the truth about.
yeah,
He was raining on your parade.
He should have been slapped.
Uh,
But
He
Bruce
just
Bruce
happened
got
to be-
Bruce got on his ass pretty good.
He
I
just
love Bruce.
happened to be a person. And you're right. Mainstream media, they weren't really interested in some of that stuff. And he was finding out information, and he wouldn't stop or let it go. I mean, he was doing his job. He's a reporter.
Yeah.
So he was doing his job.
I'm gonna have to pivot here. I should have worn my earpods tonight because I knew I was gonna need my glasses. Tony Atlas.
We love him. We all decided that
Tony Atlas had he put everything. This was like shifting the gears. His quote was, "We abused the shit out of some women."
Yeah.
And you know what, though? What I really liked about with Tony Atlas, you had the perspective of the territory, in a sense, with WWF. And then you had the 80s and, that kind of the way things had changed. Hulk Hogan really was, he was more of the Saturday Night Live and kind of the creation. But Tony Atlas had that. I felt like he had a really good, he could see, or he had a good.
He knew what was going on, and he knew how to keep his job.
Right. He had a good perspective because he was kind of coming from like the territory, he was he was wrestling before all that, versus some of the other people who were already in the WWE almost system, in a sense,
Well, at this time, and what they didn't call them it, but ring rats were a thing in the 80s, in the 70s, the 60s, the 80s. Ring rats were still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the boys abused the shit out of them.
And why is that okay?
I'm not saying it's okay.
But why did they think it was okay? Do you think, as a male? Why do you think they thought that was okay?
Since the dawn of time, men have chased women.
What do you think he meant by "we abuse the hell out of women"? Like
they'd use them. They'd use them. They were probably. I don't know I'm saying that they had girls in every town.
But is that abuse? Like, I don't know what he meant by we abuse the hell out of women. Like, if you're a ring rat, I mean, I think your goal is to sleep with one of the wrestlers. I don't really know if it matters if you go on to another town. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I wonder what he meant by that. We abuse the hell out of women. I'm just curious. I don't know.
Then he mentioned that Jimmy Snuka had killed his girlfriend, and that
I
mean,
think everybody knew that.
but he got away with it. When they finally prosecuted him for it, I mean, had dementia. He was swirling the drain.
So he did like I
Mhm.
didn't know anything about that story.
Yeah, he got screwed up and he threw her around too much in a hotel and bumped her head and killed her, and they covered it up. And they say that Vince got it covered up for him.
Mm.
And apparently he was abusive to her physically, and other incidences, I guess. So
Then they had the ring boy scandal. Mel Phillips,
mm,
and I mean Bret Hart didn't mince any words. He flat out called him a pedophile.
Yeah.
hmm
Uh,
So this is an interesting piece because I wonder, there was I forget who he told. So there's a part in this documentary where he said, Vince, I forget who he was talking to. Vince told me 2 out of the 3 did it.
Mm. That
Okay.
was the Meltzer guy.
Oh, okay. My thing is this. I am not 100% convinced that Pat Patterson was not involved, but because of who he was, they allowed it. Because if you're the ring boy, why are you going to put someone's name in it that didn't do it? If you know the other 2 did, you know what I'm saying? Like,
there was
why
another
couldn't
guy that's name, and I can't read my chicken scratch. Something, is it Garvey?
Garvin, Terry
Garvin, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Oh, yeah. I 100% believe it about Terry Garvin. And
I'm talking about Pat Patterson, though.
they're giving
Like,
Pat benefit of the doubt.
So
why?
I noticed
Why are they giving it?
in the documentary
Mm-hmm.
that when they're talking about that, like the way, because I've noticed the editing of it, like when they're talking about it, they were very much framing it that like Pat Patterson was innocent, but he was gay. He was openly gay, so he had to go too. And the only person that I remember in the documentary actually saying like, no, he's like alluding to him being guilty was Tony Atlas. But his call out was that he used to grab my pecker in the locker room. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not a minor.
Right.
So like that was interesting to me. The only person that wasn't kind of backing up the idea that he was innocent was Tony Atlas, because Tony Atlas had personal like beef with him.
Right.
I felt like Phillips and Garvin. There was no doubt those guys, the ring boy scandal, those were the pedophiles.
Yeah.
I always wondered if Pat was more quid pro quo with the boys.
I don't know. Like, I just keep thinking, like,
Because he was openly gay, so they were already watching him.
who?
Patterson.
No, I know he was gay, but who was watching him?
Everybody.
Why?
Because he was openly gay.
But I mean,
it wasn't well accepted in the 80s and the 70s.
But they accepted him.
Yes.
Because he was great. He was Vince McMahon's second in command.
Well, also, 40 years later, none of them will admit how poorly they probably treated him.
Why is he grabbing Tony? Why is he grabbing Tony Atlas's pecker? You know what I'm saying? Like, why?
The same reason that Vince McMahon's paying all the women all that money.
Well, I don't understand what you mean.
Because it's there.
Because it could.
He wanted to conquer. If Pat Patterson hadn't been gay, he'd probably been going after the female talent.
And that would have been okay?
We're not saying it was okay.
I know. I'm just asking you. Don't get mad at me.
No. I'm not. I'm just saying that.
There's a long history of men in power behaving poorly. So
Yes. I just feel okay. So this kind of makes me feel like, okay, current day. All right. We probably feel like people probably knew like something was off, but they didn't want to get involved because of, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not
Hey.
saying what.
Joe Conti says Pritchard was a massive asshole the entire documentary. Bruce had a chip on his shoulder, and they fucked him in the editing. They got him in the last episode.
They did.
They fucked him in the editing. But Bruce was not on board with this, and Bruce was defensive. I mean, Bruce didn't like it, and he was. I'm not disagreeing with that statement about Bruce in this documentary, because even they asked him at the end, they said, "What'd you think?" Because you've seen some of it. What'd you think? He said, "I think it's hard. It sucks. It's horrible. I think it's crap," or whatever he said. And he go, "Why?" He said, "Because y'all edited it to make him look like an asshole." He goes, "Well, what did we leave out?" And then, of course, Bruce shared the story about his wife having cancer, and they gave her 4 years to live, and she's still alive 24 years later because Vince McMahon got her the best cancer care that was available. He goes, "But y'all aren't out here making a documentary about the good things that Vince does."
Now, you know what I wish would have happened? And I don't know if this is true. I wish Bruce would have said, "You didn't put in the story I told you earlier about how he, and then tell the story." I don't know if there are people did tell him any good stories. I don't have any clue what he might have done that was good. I don't know if.
Well, you noticed a pattern.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know what got left out and what didn't get said.
There was a pattern of loyalty throughout the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Undertaker
Vince has done some shitty things.
I mean, even as bad as he was to Bret Hart, Bret Hart still, as a person, because he said that all his issues with Vince were business related. So I'm not defending Vince McMahon at all here. I'm telling that with Bruce, and Bruce said that, and as soon as that segment was over, it goes to a black screen and says 2 days later, and that's when the crap hit the fan. So they screwed Bruce on the. I mean, they got him for publicly criticizing him.
Right. I just think it might have been more powerful if, and I don't even know if it's happened. I don't know any great stories about Vince McMahon, and I'm not saying that they're not out there, but if people aren't telling them, how am I supposed to know? Again, I think.
Well, how much credit are you going to give to those stories when realistically, if it's like a 75-25 situation where like 75% of the stories that are going to get told about him, he's the villain, like it's how much credit are you going to give to the other 25% anyways? And then if you include those, it's just going to look like you're doing a puff piece on,
And did the producers, did they even know that he paid for Bruce's wife's cancer care? I'm not saying that's not a good thing. I'm just saying.
But if you don't know what happened, you're not going to ask about it.
Right.
I can't believe he went on Donahue.
Yeah, that was.
I can't believe he went on Donahue to face the music.
But
it did not seem like a smart thing to do.
I think that's the narcissist. Like,
I think, I think that's exactly what you're saying. And I just want to go back. I feel like I've maybe in our chat. I just wonder, like I said, I'm not saying Pat Patterson was in the pedophile ring. Did he know? Did people look away? Why would you say, oh yeah, 2 of them did it, but the third one didn't? Like, I don't know. Why even bring him up? Like, why are we saying he's a liar about Pat Patterson, but not the other 2? And why are you okay with saying it like that? Like, oh yeah, they were definitely the pedophiles, but not Pat. Well, what the hell? They work for you. Like, why did it have to go to a case? I don't know. Again, I think there's a lot there. And you do have Tony Atlas saying, well, he would grab my pecker. Why is that okay? Why would it be okay if it was, I don't understand some of the ribs and things that they do to each other. Why is it okay to shit in someone's bag? I think that's disgusting. Why is it okay to shit in someone's food and watch them eat it? These are all things that they did.
Well, back in the day,
weird.
Johnny Valentine put lighter fluid in a guy's asthma inhaler.
Exactly. Why in the hell is that okay? Or like I said, it's just that's just my thoughts.
Now we come to the accusations that the referee, first female referee, Rita Mayer,
Chatterton,
Rita Marie,
I think that was her ring.
Guys, I trying to make notes with two dogs on my lap.
I think it was Rita Chatterman, right? I think that was her name, but she was going by Rita Marie.
Yeah. I believed her 100%. I believe her 100%. She got raped. I believe that with all my heart that he did that. And he wouldn't, and he finally paid her. He finally paid her, and then said there and admitted to no wrongdoing. Well, if you didn't do anything wrong after all those years, why'd you go ahead and pay her?
Did you notice how quickly in that interview he jumped to, well, the statute of limitations had passed at that point?
Yeah, that was weird.
That's an awful quick recall of statute of limitations there, sir. Like,
did you notice how he used storyline, my character in storyline? He didn't leave anything to chance, like what he was talking about, a story that he was good, that Stephanie was going to be pregnant and it was going to be his. My character.
Yeah,
he used my character a lot. He used that as a descriptor a lot, and that stood out to me.
Well, I think so. I don't think in his mind that he saw what he was doing as rape. And I think that that's probably what took forever, or his lawyers or whatever, because what year was that? Do you know what year? 80s? Because he said in the documentary it was consensual. Yeah, it was consensual in the fact that she may have did it, but you're also her boss. You're also, alluding that you would really hate for her job to go away if we can't, so he didn't really he didn't see it as rape. It was consensual.
Because she was performing oral sex.
Well, or just the fact
that also wasn't
hold her down and like rip her clothes off and force her.
She couldn't get it. She couldn't get it done for him. So he took upon himself to get. I mean, when she said that he ripped her jeans off.
Well, I just mean he probably was not looking at the fact that it was coercive, like the fact
he's
that
thinking of like a violent.
Yes,
like not a coerced.
Yes, he's saying it's consensual. Like, oh no, we were both in agreement with what we were doing. She only did it because you're her boss, and you had kind of casually mentioned she wouldn't be without a job. Yeah. That's what I mean.
How many have we not heard about though? We're only hearing about the ones that took an exception to it.
Well, and also,
how many times did he get away with it? It was probably old hat at that point.
I mean, he was doing that in the 80s, like already having, how many sexual affairs had he already had? This one just happened to be, something that came out. Who's to say people weren't in the car? Just like I said, I think he was making it like, oh, it was consensual, like you said, because it wasn't violent, and that he wasn't like, he just had it in his head that it was consensual. I think he just told himself, like I said, I didn't tell them to take steroids, but all my, everything I do made them feel like they needed to take steroids because they weren't getting a push. They weren't big enough. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I believe 100% in his head that he's never wrong.
Oh, yes, yes,
And how dare you question him?
exactly. And
I
at
mean,
that point, he could get away with it.
I mean, we even saw that who he idolized, Dr. Jerry Graham, the wrestler,
Hmm.
whose gimmick was to light cigars with $100 bills, riding around town in a convertible. Vince rode around with him until Vince's dad put a stop to that.
Hmm.
He idolized Jerry Graham. Could you imagine? That'd be like me running around with Ric Flair.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
he said that he wanted to be like Jerry Graham. He based the strut, the McMahon strut, off of Jerry Graham. He wanted to be Jerry Graham. So I just think that in his mind, he can do no wrong. I've heard Bruce tell stories before that Vince liked to go to New York City to get a haircut and tip $100. Pay them, but tip. He used $100 bills for tips everywhere they went, and I think that was just his way of macho dick thing.
It
Big
goes.
dick, is that big dick? Would that be called big dick energy?
I think it goes back to that 10, 12-year-old boy who was getting beat up by a stepdad who really didn't have a father figure. And he sees this, like that's the kind of person I want to be. I bet no one hits him. I bet no one gives him shit. He likes his, money means nothing. He lived in a trailer park, money means nothing. I bet, nobody makes fun of him. Nobody does this. Look at him. He's driving 100 miles an hour. He don't give two shits about the police and the rules of the road. And I want to be like that. I mean,
the rules don't apply to me.
It's his character. Like when he refers to his character because he's trying to separate himself from the asshole version.
Exactly.
But he is still like tipping $100. Like that's still him trying to create the character of who he wants people to think he is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just think he thinks he's untouchable. I think it's. You could be right, Amy. He probably doesn't believe that he's ever done anything wrong.
No.
I mean, even his responses to the lawsuit, the current lawsuit by Janelle Grant, he's not denying that anything happened between them. And he's like, well, we have the NDA says that we go to mediation, not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, she's a piece of business.
Exactly.
I don't think he sees her. I don't think he sees her as a human. I think he thinks that she's just another piece of business. She's been bought and paid for and filed away.
Right. Well, and again, she was there. She did it. So it was consensual. Like you said, like, I know I'm her boss, and I gave her a bunch of nice things. And whenever, the one time she ignored me, I fired her. I just think
Hired her in at 100,000.
Right.
Bumped her up to 200,000 when we got sexual.
I just think that it's but I think after that lawsuit with the government, where 99.9%, if the government's coming after you, they win, and he won. Mm-hmm. I think at that moment, like you said, I think he was untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah. He felt bulletproof. He felt bulletproof at that point.
Totally felt bulletproof. He had people around him. Again, and I'm not saying this about Bruce because I know he gets labeled this. I'm just saying this in general. Vince held the purse strings for a lot of people. And so, of course, you're going to have a lot of yes men around you. Of course, you're going to have people doing everything and thinking everything you want to do is great. Of course, you're going to have people look away. Like if you're, getting it on with the ref or whatever, and, we're just going to let them have their time together. There's lots of people that probably knew that there were things going on with this employee. You can't tell me that nobody in that company knew that this was
Everybody
going
knows
on.
on every job, the dirt gets around.
Exactly. We all know if we work at a job and somebody's being inappropriate with another person, everybody knows. It's just
Well, and in
interesting.
the steroid lawsuit, even the person, Hogan's the star witness to testify against him,
Right.
and still like not covered for him, but you know what I mean, like still wouldn't give him up and still
Right.
was the loyal,
While working for WCW.
why after, which side note, like won't digress here, I have questions. But even in that like situation where he not only beat the government, but the people that the government were trying to get to go against him still did it in a way that was in his interest.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Andrew also has another fascinating statement about the psychological study. I think that's 100% true, has found that most successful business owners, operators, and executives test most frequently as sociopaths or psychopaths. And I totally could see that. Because in all honesty, Vince McMahon is not really different than probably other family owned or Fortune 500, like we see it all the time. People that,
How is the Mr. McMahon character any different from J.R. Ewing?
Probably not. Poor Brittany. Do you remember the show Dallas?
Oh, I know what it is.
Well, what I'm saying is I think that we went into episode 3. It was about the screw job. They started out with Wendy Richter, how they screwed her out to get the belt back.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it. I kind of I don't think most people. Like I said, I think most people think Montreal screw job, like they think that was the only time. I like that they are highlighting that with Wendy Richter and Spider Woman or whatever it was. Because I do think most people think Montreal screw job was the only screw job ever. And so, no, it wasn't. But I kind of get it.
It's business.
It's property. It's business. But I do.
You didn't win it to begin with. So if you didn't win it, then why can't you lose it? I mean, it's time for you to give it back, and you don't want to give it back.
Right. There's one thing that I did decide during this whole thing. I cannot be an entrepreneur or like a business owner because I don't have that mentality of business is business. And that means I can do whatever I see fit to do. I just thought I'd tell everybody out there. I probably will not be owning a business anytime soon. It's just not going to happen. But I feel like he uses that as a cover for a lot of bad behavior.
I think that's why that study that like a lot of because they don't view it as doing business. They'll do whatever it takes to be successful, not do whatever is ethical.
Yes.
So that's people with ethics and morals don't cheat to get to that level.
That is a really good point. You have to have a certain mind frame and think of business as business regardless. That's just like you said in the Goodfellas. Seriously, their business is business. If they think you cheated them, then Joe Pesci opened up the room, thought he was going to be a made man, and it was the empty room, and he knew instantly at that time. And so but it's just business. Like it's just business. I'm not trying to
for some reason
purging the territories. That was just business. I was trying to expand my business.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and sometimes it's just shitty. Like WCW getting a bulletin board, getting a billboard right across from Titan Towers, so when Vince looked out the window, he'd see a WCW billboard. Vince taking out a full page ad.
Why is that shitty?
That's funny. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's some shit you would do, Dad.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Vince decided to go off about he took out a full page ad in USA Today about accusing him. I think it was insider trading or something. Vince booking Survivor. I mean,
Right.
doing Survivor Series to go against Starrcade,
Yes.
telling the pay-per-view providers, if you broadcast that pay-per-view, you can't have WrestleMania.
Exactly.
Then they
That's just
answered with the
business.
Clash of Champions and hurt, and they got called out because it hurt the bottom line. You don't do that, because Ted Turner was in business with all these cable operators. We've gone against a pay-per-view and hurt everybody's revenue.
Mhm.
I mean, that kind of sabotaging, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, they filed suit over Razor Ramon, but nobody was smart enough to realize that Razor Ramon was the Diamond Stud before he was the same. He was doing the Diamond Stud was Razor Ramon. WWE really had taken their property. It's like Dawkins told us last week on the show that he could have won that.
Right. Well, and I think,
but nobody bothered to look. They just paid it.
but like you said, there were things, you know, if it was done to Vince, he got offended, but it was a lot of the same things he had done to other people, but that was just business.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he definitely.
And then they called him out on it.
Right.
And his response was, well, sometimes I say things and that's not what I mean. Or that's not what I actually think. And people don't just understand that there's a
yeah. How the hell are we
several
supposed to know?
like,
well, the not guilty, it was not guilty, but it still hurt the company. People were leaving him in droves. They didn't want to be associated with him. WWE, we'd heard the stories about they even took the water coolers out of the building. They couldn't afford water coolers.
Right.
And then, of course, Bret Hart immediately put himself over. That he was the savior. He was the savior of the.
I will say this. I have never been very Bret Hart, I've never had any kind of feeling about him. Like, you know, like I know some people really like him or some people really, but he said something in this documentary and I was just like, oh my God, you really do think very highly of yourself. He said his first thought after Owen died
was that Vince killed him.
Did they kill him because I left? I was like, oh my God, like you are.
But you didn't leave.
On it real fast and like acknowledged like that's like I don't know. I was very like I came away very sympathetic to Bret Hart, which my baseline knowledge is like I know that's a person. Like but the whole thing was really like I went on a whole tear about it to Dad last night because I was like, this is the shit. Like it made me so happy that he like knocked Vince out. Like, and I think maybe that's just part of it too. It's just like, I love that somebody fucking decked him and that makes me extra sympathetic to him. But like
at the time I loved it too.
That whole story, like, and I get that like this person, like that is your first, it's a traumatic situation and like but he did back off of it and be like, and I like late afterwards understood that like I was being over the top.
That was just like you.
And even really Shawn Michaels owned it. Even
What?
Shawn Michaels owned it. He goes, yeah, I was being a real dick.
Oh well, yeah. Well, and Shawn Michaels has been very,
he looks like
I don't want to say.
But even Vince said that Bret was good in the ring, but he wasn't very charismatic.
Yeah.
I mean, what Vince should have said is that couldn't nobody accuse Bret Hart of taking steroids. That's why we made him the champion. And if the truth was to be told, he's not even the best wrestler in his family.
I just was kind of like, did he? First off, you think like you truly believe that statement? He said it out loud on the documentary. Like you really think Vince McMahon would have had your brother killed because you left WCW or for WCW?
I think the logic behind it that like he killed my brother because he's mad at me, like that logic doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the initial thought being, did Vince McMahon kill my brother? I don't think that's a huge leap.
I was just like,
but why? But I mean, but he didn't leave. Vince said, I
Vince
can't
let him-
afford to pay you,
Told him how to go.
but use
Right.
this to get them to give you a bigger contract. I mean, basically they're milk that mark for all you can.
Sure.
So Vince did him a favor. Brett went to WCW where he was a fart in church. I mean, his WCW run was not good. But he got paid millions and millions of dollars for being there.
But
right.
Why did he need to fuck him over? That's the part. Like, that's the part. Like y'all had it figured out how everyone gets what they want. Everyone walks away happy, but cruelty is the point.
Well, Vince thought, I believe that Vince thought if he left that belt on Brett after that pay-per-view, that belt would have ended up on Nitro the next night. Even though Brett couldn't legally appear, he thought that his belt that Eric would have wanted that belt. And if Eric was paying him millions and millions of dollars, Vince did not want his main championship being thrown in the trash on Nitro like the women's championship was. Also,
the match,
and I also believe there's a lot of it's because I told you this is where you're going to drop the belt. This is where you're going to drop the belt.
Right.
And Sean had his hand up Vince's ass, working him like a puppet. I mean, I've always believed that Vince didn't get rid of Brett because he couldn't afford the contract. I've always believed that Vince got rid of Brett because Shawn Michaels didn't want Brett there. I've always believed that you can't afford $1 million a year. Because you look at all this, I mean, look at all the talent that he signed after that, but you can't afford $1 million a year for Brett.
Right.
I think Brett seemed like a good idea, and you realized that Shawn was your bread and butter, and you chose sides, and rightfully so, because Shawn Michaels is probably the greatest in-ring performer of all time, and he definitely was at that time.
Yeah, I definitely could see where he picked. Like you said, you can't have both. They don't get along. Like, one's got to go. It's going to be you. You know, it's going to be. I mean, that whole situation was a big old mess. But again, the way it was done, like
it was just every part of it. I
like that you reacted that way, Brittany.
Yeah,
I know I hate Vince McMahon, and I know I'm biased that way, but also why? Yeah, cool. I got to lose the belt. Noted. I don't want to go out in Montreal to. I keep calling him Brett Michaels. What's it, Shawn Michaels? Like, I don't want to go out to him in Montreal. Like
they're
that's
very similar looking at that point, Brett and Shawn.
He looks like shit. Oh,
But
he looks so bad.
But in my mind, and at the time, I agreed at the time. I was pissed that they screwed him at the time. Happy to see him. When he spit on Vince, did the WCW thing, I was excited.
Yeah.
I'm looking back now in hindsight that
was gross.
Shawn Michaels was a huge mark for himself. I mean, Bret Hart was a huge mark for himself. You don't lose. How can I not lose him? Even his dad, who's a promoter, said that Brett was wrong. So
how do you do that how do you do that in front of everyone like that? Like,
everybody loses in their hometown, Amy.
No. That's not what I meant. I meant the actual screw job, like the bell ringing, the whole.
He went out of his way to be ringside so that Bret Hart saw him be the person to fuck him over.
Yeah.
It wasn't just you're gonna the way he did the women's match where it just count to 3, let it be like he needs to lose. No, he wanted to be ringside. He wanted him to see, like, it was like that scene in Game of Thrones where she's like, tell Cersei, I want her to know it was me. Like,
well, Vince also said that he wanted it to be the only one, that it was 100% him and nobody else. Nobody else knew, just him. Jim Cornette came up with the idea. Jim Cornette's the one that told him, just screw him.
But again, that's a real good way of saying, like, I'm going to screw you. You know, I'm going to be out there and you're going to see that I screwed you, but I'm going to do it because it's best for business. You know, again, we go back to that mentality of just.
That's not a business decision. He made it personal.
Right.
On purpose. Like, he went out of his way
right.
to make it a personal
Exactly.
insult.
And it wasn't just him. It was Pat Patterson was out there, Jerry Briscoe. I mean, like there was all these people down ringside. Why could they not have tackled him after it was over if they wanted to do that?
Mhm.
He's got to walk out.
Yeah.
Like they could have they could have gotten that belt from him
Yeah.
if he won or lost or whatever. If he was so worried about it ending up on
Yeah.
WCW.
If you lack the creativity to come up with a storyline that makes you end up with the belt, that's on
Yeah.
you. Like
Well, he
it's
should have made him
always
drop the belt. He should have made him drop the belt before he told him he couldn't afford him anymore.
I think it's one of those things that it was a total
was-
pissing contest between all three of them too. I mean,
Yeah,
Shawn
and I think it was
Michaels,
Vince and
Bret
Shawn
Hart,
against Brett on that.
and it was
that was his Waterloo. He was gonna. This is it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then we had Nitro launch. Lex Luger shows up. He was in WWE one day, was on Nitro the next night, and it pissed Vince off.
Do you think so? Let's go back. So with WCW, do you think in the because really Vince really had no quote competition wrestling wise when he was building the WWF because he was going to the territories and picking, offering more money, getting television and that kind of stuff. Do you think Vince got sloppy with the competition, like, and maybe the anger to where he was making mistakes, like let the contract not be what I don't think he had a contract.
Well, I think he put a lot of stock in handshake agreements too.
well, and what's wild to me is if you're losing all your top talent because they're getting better contracts and like they just want 3 days off a year, like I'm that hyperbole, but like if you know the reason you're losing all of your top talent, and like I get that you can't afford to pay them $1 bajillion, but like you get a week off to like recover. Like if like that's the issue of like I need a better family life, the problem. Why are you not fixing it to keep your talent? Instead, you're gonna, be a little bitch about it and say that, Ted Turner's coming after you. When, by the way, you did the same fucking thing. How do you think you got all these people?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's business, Brittany. That's business.
but like, you know what the problem is. You know how to stop the bleed. You're just not willing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
and maybe that's the control thing, like I don't want you telling me what you're going to do.
Yeah, you don't call the shots. Yeah.
When you said a minute ago, Brittany, I'd mentioned Hulk Hogan was in WCW when he went testified for the government. You said I have questions.
Yeah, like why? So, like I'm thinking of it in like comedian terms, like when Conan left, whatever, like he couldn't take the characters he created at whatever network it was because it's intellectual property of the network. Why was Hulk Hogan not intellectual property of? Like, did those kind of contracts just not exist at that point? Because isn't that why he went after Razor Ramon or whatever his name was?
He was Hulk Hogan before he got there. Razor Ramon was Scott Hall. Scott Hall went to work for WWE, became the character Razor Ramon. They own that IP. Ted DiBiase was the $1 million.
Created. I thought they said Vince McMahon's dad came up with Hulk Hogan. Was that a different company?
He was Hulk Hogan. He
was like Sterling, whatever.
He was Sterling Golden, and then he became the Incredible Hulk Hogan. And actually, they had to license the Hulk from Marvel
because with all the merch and everything, like.
But Hulkamania started.
I couldn't imagine him letting that go without a fight.
Now Hulkamania started in Tim Robinson said Hulkamania started in the AWA, and Vince signed him. But Hulkamania was running wild. I mean, I just coincidentally happened to be wearing. I mean, when Hulk Hogan appeared in Rocky 3 as Thunder Lips, that's when he really took off. And in the AWA, it was a Hulkamania was running wild, so he took that to WWE, and that was his. So,
was the yellow and red his? Like to me, I mean, that's interesting because he was wearing yellow and red in WCW before he became Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I mean, he went to yellow and red while he was in WWE, and I mean, he also was wearing the blue and white, and
Right.
But-
I'm
but the
surprised
characters-
that he was able to wear red and yellow. I guess in that, I don't know.
like Brian Danielson went to WWE, and they made him Daniel Bryan.
Right.
So now he's Brian Danielson in AEW.
Right. That's
Some
kinda
people get to
interesting, though,
some people get to keep their name. I mean, if that was your name, like
Like
Ric
if it's
Flair.
your birth name, it's not like they can.
Yeah, but Ric Flair was Ric Flair before he got there,
Yeah.
Right.
so he could be Ric Flair when he left. They sign over their IP. They sign over their IP when they're under contract, and they get their IP back when they leave. But sometimes but like they tried to sue, so WWE recast Razor and Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
They put Kane, Glenn Jacobs was the fake Diesel,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember who was the fake Razor now.
Lee,
But they were Razor Ramon and Diesel, but
Brian
WWE
Lee.
wanted to show that those were their characters,
Mm,
and the recasting didn't work. But
shocking.
the thing was is they were trying to their case against Scott Hall was the toothpick and the hair but he was doing that as the Diamond Stud when he was in WCW before he went to WWE. But I did note that they made Vince sell. Vince normally no-sold everything, and
Mm-hmm.
Nitro made Vince sell with the Billionaire
Yes.
Ted skits. He was actually showing that they got to him, and
Yes. Yes.
then he made the whole speech about kayfabe. I mean, he pretty much tore down kayfabe. Said we're not going to insult your intelligence anymore, because this is the time of my life when I realized that Vince McMahon was a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I put in my notes. While we're making fun of him, because I put this in my notes. This picture of Vince.
Oh my God,
Mm.
he's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he turned into
knew.
Snidely Whiplash.
Uh,
I would have
Yeah.
also accepted Dick Dastardly.
The first time
Yeah.
I saw that picture of it, like when he looked like that, like I legitimately had no idea who it was.
It looked
Yeah.
like Christopher Walken on Saturday Night Live in the International or whatever he was, where he would do the talking to the camera, and like he had a woman in his apartment and she tried to run and he'd block the door.
mhm.
But Christopher Walken had that little baby goat's ass mustache too. And
He looked like the guy on Rocky and Bullwinkle with
Yeah.
Natasha. Whoever, what was his
Yeah.
name?
yeah,
Boris.
Oh yeah, Boris.
That's what he looked like to me.
Yeah, Boris, Snidely Whiplash, Dick Dastardly.
And again, that's one of those things. It's like
No,
that's what
no one-
having yes men. That's what
Yeah.
like you end up looking like that.
Yeah. No one cares
No.
enough to tell you look like shit.
No kidding.
He looked like the Wish version wax figure of himself. I love you so much for that, Allison.
I mean, like, and at that point,
Tim said the Addams Family dad.
yes,
Morticia's the wife.
Mm.
yes. I mean, it just
Gomez.
Hey, if he'd have had that mustache, earlier in life, he would have been he'd have got included.
He would
in
have
the
avoided
Ring
some
Boy scandal.
lawsuits.
oh my goodness,
They would have been on that Ring Boy scandal too.
right? It's terrible. Mm.
I think that's why it's so jarring to see Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels too, when you see like, oh, age has taken them. And then it'll cut to McMahon and I'm like, he looks
Because a lot of the clips we saw of him, especially during the Attitude Era, Vince looked damn good.
Yeah,
he didn't look bad.
But
He looks human.
but I mean, he's 78, 79. I mean, it's okay to look old. You're 80. You know, I mean,
You look
That's
like
just-
you've had bad work done. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
uh,
But it looked like he toned it down, at least for this documentary. It was not jet black. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
maybe somebody did say, don't
Well-
do that no more. Or maybe
Well,
you
we've made it.
realized
We've
it.
made it halfway through the documentary, and so I'm going to call an audible and say that we're going to do part 2 next week.
Yes, that sounds good.
I really had some concerns that we couldn't get all 6 episodes in, but I'm so super excited that Brittany would come on because
Definitely.
she started texting me, "Are you watching this? Are you watching this?" And she's a
Like, I
casual,
have questions and I have thoughts.
and
And
we
I-
wanted to hear them.
Yes, because I want to know, like I said, I don't feel like I really learned anything new. I want to know, what do other people think? It's like
Vince
one of those
McMahon is a
things
bag
where,
of shit.
yeah, I think we,
Hulk
yeah,
Hogan is a
we
bag
can
of
all
shit.
agree. Kind of agree with that.
Yeah, that was.
I think
that
it's
was- those were
interesting.
some-
It's like it's one of those things when you grow up in something, like you don't realize maybe what others from the outside, because you're just, and I think a lot of people they do have a soft spot because he is the creator of something that people love and grew up and, their childhood. And so it's interesting to hear other perspectives that people who don't have that soft spot, and it kind of puts things in
It's good
perspective.
context, because also in my mind, all of these wrestlers are WWE.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, and
Yeah,
I
sure.
remember there being different programs, but like,
Mhm.
I don't think my brain like separated them into different companies.
Right.
So, like, because in my like, they're wrestlers, like they're all just, and it's very confusing. So like that, actually learning the history of certain things has been really interesting, and like I can appreciate what he built,
Mm-hmm.
but he is human garbage.
No, with that, yeah.
Which I knew going in, so that part's not.
I genuinely believe he deserves every bad thing that happens to him. I also believe that if you make people sign NDAs, now I understand that he does some freaky shit, and he probably doesn't want somebody talking about all the freaky shit he does. But
That's the wild part. This is all the stuff he's willing to say on camera.
yeah,
And put in a text, like, some of that stuff is just, again, it's like, I wish I didn't know that. Like, you could be freaky,
just seems
but I
like to
don't-
me
I didn't
that you
wanna
don't
know.
pay people that much money if you didn't do something wrong.
I don't know if you have to do something wrong as much as, like you said, you don't want it all out. Like, we don't,
And he's a
it's
married. I mean, he
freaky
is a married.
stuff.
He is a married man. But
He's been doing it in the 80s.
But that dynamic, I don't understand.
What don't you understand?
Why do they stay married to
Well,
each other?
I would stay married. I'm not losing half my money.
But do you?
Oh, you think
Take the
Linda's not
one-time
going? You
payout?
don't think Linda can't win it? I mean, I
Yeah.
bet that Linda ain't got no prenup.
Well, no,
you give up
there's
the constant stream of money for the one-time payout at the divorce.
I mean, why? It's working. They live separate lives.
Yeah.
And
And-
honestly, it's probably been like this for decades.
Mhm.
She's had to decide a long time ago that she was going to stick it out with him, because he was screwing around on her back in the 80s,
Yeah.
So she made a conscious effort. Could have been for her kids. It could have been for all the money she's put into it. She could have, well, by God, when I want to do something, oh, he's going to pay,
Mhm.
I don't know, but
Well, next week when we
I
get
wouldn't
into the
divorce him.
Attitude Era, I truly believe. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about right there.
What, you don't think you should just stay? I'm not saying be his wife, but I'm not divorcing him.
That's I was like, I mean,
If he wants to divorce me, let him start it.
If we're gonna act like we're divorced, but you're gonna still bankroll whatever the fuck I want to do, I mean,
I know. I'm kind of like, they made that decision a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was way before all of this.
Yeah, I don't.
They
I
have
don't
an
get.
understanding.
I don't get the dynamic, and you don't hear a bunch of bad stuff about Linda. Nobody really ever says anything bad about Linda. So,
Well, if you knew that, they probably feel sorry for her. I mean,
How do you feel
again,
sorry for her at this point?
well, no, I just meant probably like back in the 80s, 90s,
Mhm.
like they all knew he was messing around on her, and she probably was a very, they probably felt sorry for her in that case. But they're all doing
the
it.
boys did not
I
feel
don't
sorry
know.
for her. They're probably patting Ben on.
Well, that's true.
I mean,
That's true.
guys, those guys playing around on the road was nothing new.
No, that's very true. That's very true.
So
Oh no.
anyway, we'll get back into it. I'm looking forward to getting into the Attitude Era. I will say this though. I do believe that Vince McMahon booked himself and all of those suggestive
Oh,
angles. I think that was art imitating life.
definitely.
I think it was. I think he was putting himself in those positions and he was probably being creepy backstage at the same time.
Well, and again, what are they going to do? Say no? He's the boss, and they're making lots of money.
And there
and
wasn't
he's still getting
anybody,
paid.
and there wasn't anybody else. There wasn't anybody else in town paying.
Exactly. I think that's definitely.
So next week we'll pick up with episode 4 next week. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, definitely.
We
Will you
really
be able
enjoyed
to
having
join
you
us?
on.
Next week, if your schedule allows it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great because
Yeah,
you
we're
get
gonna-
it finished. I'm gonna rewatch episode 6 again because I watched it twice today. Well, I kind of
Mhm.
went to sleep, and I heard
Oh.
and
Bucky got a hold
no
of it.
Fritz.
Oh, Fritz.
Fritz was chewing up, and that's what woke me up. So then I rewound it back to Shane at WrestleMania and started watching it again.
Hey, you have a pause button when you're watching it, right?
I fell asleep watching it.
No, I know. To pause to write your note to yourself. Just a thought.
Yeah, I guess. But I was trying to watch it and make notes, and then the dogs would come.
How'd that work out for you? I can't read your handwriting. I don't know what I wrote.
I tried, y'all. I really did.
We love teasing you.
But before we get out of here, we noticed that the WWE showed us a lot of pictures of belts on this documentary.
Definitely.
But I don't think they went to Big Time Belts. Big Time Belts, Facebook.com. High quality, low prices. Join the group. Muhammad Zubair is making your belt dreams come true. You can tell him, you can give him a rough idea of what you want. He'll show you that he'll make it a piece of art. You'll approve it. He'll put it on metal and leather. The SWA Tag Team Wrestling Champions went to Big Time Belts. Look at those. I love the yellow leather. I'm hoping that's yellow.
Ooh,
Looks yellow to me.
cool. Yeah.
We all know
I
I'm
like
colorblind.
that.
That one I'm actually right on the Flying V Fighting
Ooh.
Champion.
That looks cool.
That's elegant. That's an elegant looking belt. I like the bent bars around it.
Yeah.
Winged eagle style. Sam Houston and his old I should have wrote this guy's name down. They were the Renegades. They got Renegades belts made. Yeah, that's Sam Houston. That's Sam Houston that was married to Baby Doll.
You know what?
That's Jake's brother.
Whenever he was younger, I didn't think they looked much alike, but here I really could tell that they are siblings.
He looks like Grizzly. He looks like his daddy.
Oh, bless his heart.
Another Tim Robinson. Tim Robinson's AEW Tag Team Wrestling Championship belt. I've told the story before. Tim had a wrestling promotion, AMW, running 2008, 2009, 2010 in there, and I loved working for him. but he never had belts for his promotion. He used to rent belts from me. And now he's created his heavyweight, his light heavyweight, his tag team. I have seen the art for his women's belt. I'm super excited for that project to get started. I'm so happy for Tim. So happy for Tim Robinson that he's getting all of his belts. Lucha Libre, the Hoodmark belt.
Interesting.
My good friend Jean Paul had this made. Runs Hoodmark Promotions in South Louisiana. That's why they have the Le Bon Temps. Let the good times roll.
I like that.
Oh,
that's pretty.
Arkansas Wrestling Association's Openweight Championship came from big time belts. Look at that red leather. Look at that beautiful belt. Mr. and Mrs.
Mm-hmm. Have they got married yet?
September 7th.
That's right.
They're coming up on 1 month. At wedding belts. You can get wedding belts at Big Time Belts. And here is the artwork for the Ram Network Fantasy Football Championship.
So good. So good.
Yes, that's the concept art. I'm going to share through the process when we talk about Big Time Belts every week. This is the approved artwork. You see that it's got the football. We went with the Big Eagle style belt. It's got the Talking Wrestling logo. It's got the Big Time Belts logo, the Filter Free logo, and the TNA Top 10 logos. Super excited about getting this belt, and I'll share the progress. And trying real hard to win this fantasy league. I gave Timmy C his first loss this week.
Oh.
So I'm 2-2.
Good job.
Stephanie's 3-1.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
She's gonna be strutting around with that belt on.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you what, if I gotta start trading all my good players to her, we'll gang up on everybody if I feel like that I'm out. But Big Time Belts, Facebook.com. We want to thank them for sponsoring not only our podcast, but our fantasy football league over on the Ram Network, which I'd like to take a minute to tell you about. Ram Network, patreon.com/Ram Network. For $5 a month, you get all the bonus content that you can stand. World-class flashback.
Generations.
Man, I'm blacking out.
The
Power of the Pen. Tell them about the Power of the Pen, Amy.
Well, the Power of the Pen, what we did, our last episode was with Zach Haydorn, who wrote a book about stunning Steve Austin. It's a very good book. What TJ and I do is that we read either biographies, autobiographies about wrestling, wrestlers, and we have the author come on and talk to us about it. It's very good. So I definitely, it's very good. So I definitely recommend looking that up. We also did Brian Solomon. He's on there. And we have some others in the queue, as they say, of some books that we're reading. So that's a good one too. We have footballers with Tim and
footballers,
Dave. Getting you
Timmy
paid,
and Dave.
as they say.
See,
And
the RAM stands for wrestling and more, and that footballers is the more.
Exactly. Of course, TNA Top 10, they're doing football, and they do a lot of Top 10 lists, which is always fun to listen to. But
this week it's hamburgers. Fast food hamburgers.
That was last week. This week is one hit wonders.
Oh, it is one hit wonders. I wrote it down.
Right.
I wrote it down. They're doing one hit wonders, and Filter Free Podcast is doing October of 1995.
It's always fun to think about what was going on in the world in the different eras that they look at. Oh, Terry says they're cookies next week, so they'll do top 10 cookies. So be looking at that poll to come out so you can vote.
Yeah, the one hit wonders. I didn't read that it was the 1990s one hit wonders. Because I was like going through them and I was like cussing under my breath. How did they miss that one? How did they miss that one? How did they miss that one? And then I realized it was the 90s. I think part of the fun with them is that we give them a hard time about what's not on the list. But I think they did a really good list for 1990 one-hit wonders, and they do it. Those boys do a good job over there. I was with them last week, and I had a really good time on that show with them.
Yes, yes, definitely. So
We
give
did
it a
talk.
listen.
All right. Until next week, we want to again one time thank my daughter Brittany for joining us. We'll hope to see her back next week because it's going to get juicy in episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah, definitely have some ideas and thoughts.
For the First Lady of the Arn Anderson Fan Club, Amy Vaughn, I'm Pondwater Dave. We will see you again next week.